And the moment he believed her, I realized something. If someone can walk away because of someone else's opinion, they were never mine to begin with.
I used to think Aiden and I were one of those couples who just fit. Not in a dramatic, movie-perfect way, but steady, warm, real. We made late-night ramen together. We whispered nonsense at 2 in the morning. He'd squeeze my hand twice in the car, a silent way of saying, "I'm here." For 2 whole years, I really believed we were building something solid. Until she cracked it all open. Leia, his childhood best friend. The kind of girl who looks flawless even when she claims she just rolled out of bed. Everyone called her sunshine. Until you stood between her and the spotlight she craved. With me, she always acted like I was just keeping a seat warm, a seat she expected me to give up. The moment I'd walk into a room, her voice would drop. She'd glance at Aiden and wait for him to pick a side. But still, I trusted him. I trusted us. And then came the night it all unraveled. Aiden showed up at my apartment, pale and nervous. He was twisting his keys so hard it looked like he was trying to wring the guilt right out of them. "Collie, we need to talk." I already knew nothing good ever starts with that sentence. He sat down, avoiding my eyes, and finally confessed, "Leia thinks you might be a red flag." My heart just stopped. "A red flag? Me?" he went on. "She thinks you're too emotional, too attached, that you overthink things. Maybe she sees something I didn't." It felt like someone else was speaking through him, like my boyfriend had become a mouthpiece for a woman who barely knew me, but somehow felt entitled to decide my worth. I didn't cry. I didn't beg or try to defend myself. I just sat there and watched 2 years of my life disintegrate because another woman whispered a single doubt into his ear. He hugged me on his way out. It was a hollow, obligatory hug, the kind you give a stranger. And just like that, I was alone. The next morning, the heartbreak hit me like a physical weight in my chest. I replayed everything in my head, every moment, every word, every tiny sign I had chosen to brush aside. But a strange thing happened as the pain washed over me. Clarity started to seep in. If someone can abandon you just because someone else tells them to, then they were never truly yours to begin with. So I started to rebuild myself piece by piece. I started writing in my journal again. I went running. I spent evenings with my cousin Rowan, who told me something I will never forget. Anyone who listens to commentary over connection is not your person. And for the first time, I truly believed him. Weeks passed, then a month. Just when I thought the chapter had finally closed for good, Aiden texted, "Can we talk?" I stared at the message on my phone like it was a ghost tapping on my window. I ignored him. But he kept calling, kept texting, leaving these shaky voicemails. Finally, I agreed to meet him. Not because I wanted him back, but because I deserved to hear whatever broken apology he had rehearsed. He showed up at the cafe looking nothing like the confident man who Dee walked out of my life weeks earlier. His hair was a mess, his shirt was wrinkled, and his eyes were red and tired. "Callie," he breathed, his voice cracking, "I made a mistake." The biggest mistake? He confessed everything. How Leia finally admitted she was jealous. How she had manipulated him because she didn't want anyone else taking him away from her. How she'd disguised her own insecurity as concern for him, and he'd fallen for it completely. He realized far too late that he had let someone else steer our relationship right off a cliff. "I should never have listened to her," he whispered. "I want you back. Please, let me fix this." But he didn't know something. I had brought something with me. Something I wrote during my healing. Something I knew he needed to read, even if it shattered him. I placed a cream-colored envelope on the table between us. "What's this?" he asked, his voice trembling. "A gift," I said calmly. "Something I made for you." Inside were 17 pages I had written by hand. They were letters. Not to win him back, not to guilt him, but to finally tell the truth I had been carrying in silence. The first page was titled, "Things I Carried Quietly." He flipped through them slowly. I described every unspoken act of love, how I held him when he doubted his career choices, how I reminded him to eat during his long work weeks, how I defended him when others mocked his indecision, how I rearranged my entire schedule just so he could have time to breathe, how I accepted his closeness with Leia even when it hurt me. Every single letter ended with the same line. I did these things because I believed in us. Aiden started blinking rapidly, his jaw trembling. But it was the last page, the 17th, that finally broke him. Its title was, Things I Will Never Carry Again. I listed the mistakes I had made out of love, how I apologized for having feelings that were perfectly valid, how I let someone else decide my worth, how I stayed silent instead of standing tall for myself, how I allowed a third person to intrude on a relationship that was only meant for two. And at the bottom of the page, centered, were these words, losing you hurt, but losing myself hurt more. Aiden put a hand over his mouth. His eyes filled with tears instantly, his breath catching in his chest. Callie, I didn't know. I didn't realize I made you feel this way. You didn't ask, I said softly. You trusted her voice more than mine. He swallowed hard. I'll do anything therapy, creating distance from Leia, proving myself every single day. Just tell me what you need. For a fleeting moment, the old love I had for him stirred inside me. But healing doesn't mean going back to the place that broke you. Aiden, I said gently, you're not a bad person. But you're not the right person to love me the way I deserve to be loved. He shook his head, desperate. Please don't say that. I can change. I know you can, I replied. But I'm not waiting around to find out if you will. The truth finally shattered him. He looked down at the letters in his hands like they were something holy, heartbreaking, and irreversible. Callie, what am I supposed to do with all of this? I stood up, slinging my bag over my shoulder. Learn from it, I said softly. And the next time someone loves you, don't let anyone else decide for you. As I walked out of that cafe, the air felt lighter, crisp, fresh, almost new. For the first time in months, the weight in my chest was gone. Not because I didn't care anymore, but because I finally cared about myself more. Later that week, I was talking to Rowan again. He asked if I regretted giving Aiden the letters. No, I said. He needed to read the truth. And I needed to let it go. He nodded, then asked, Do you think he'll ever move on? I smiled faintly. Maybe, but regret lasts a lot longer than love. And in that moment, I realized something profound. Being called a red flag by someone who barely knew me didn't define who I was. But letting someone else define my worth did, and choosing myself, that was the real ending. It was an ending I never needed Aiden to understand because it was never meant for him. It was meant for me. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more.